Hey, it's only me.
Before we get started, here are the trigger warnings.
My timeline is a little murky as it is with some people with PTSD. I stopped talking between the age of 6 and 10. I knew this man, and I'll just say he was a member of the family to some degree, who used to slap my bum when I walked past. And my parents used to do it, so I didn't really think that he meant anything by it, but I didn't really care. It bothered me. I went to my mother one day to tell her about it, and she was making the bed, so of course she was busy doing something and I was bothering her. To my surprise, she kind of said, well, he hasn't been around children that much, so he might not know where kind of things start and things end. And in that moment, I just felt my whole world crash down, and I was thinking, not only is she not going to sort out this problem in which a boundary of mine, somebody touching my body and making me feel uncomfortable, is not going to change, she also wouldn't believe me if he started touching the front of my body, like my proper, intimate area. That really affected me. And of course, when I was actually abused by that particular man, I didn't say anything to anyone. I felt like my voice had no value. I felt like it was pointless speaking. I felt like, who wants to listen to me talk anyway? No matter what I said, nothing felt like it changed. What's the point in speaking when nobody's gonna listen to you? I didn't see the point in using my voice at all. I was totally silenced, and so I silenced myself. I became really inward, very shy, painfully shy. I wouldn't even order my own food. The waitress would look at me and ask me what I wanted, and my sister would answer for me. I didn't want to talk at all, and she already knew that I wouldn't, so she would just kind of pick up those tasks for me. She's such a good big sister. It's such a nice thing. I mean, when you think back about your big sister looking after you, I was lucky to have the one that I had, because I remember this point in my life and she just kind of picked up the pieces to some degree and kind of tried to hold me together the best that she could, even though she was a child going through things too. In time, through not speaking as much to family and never speaking to strangers, really avoiding eye contact even, I became really anxious when it was time to talk to somebody, or I kind of should have talked to somebody. I would just avoid it. So for me, using the example at the restaurant once again, I remember once going to a restaurant and my sister ordering for me like she always did, but I was really thirsty. And I remember thinking, I wish I had a glass of water just on the side. I was so thirsty, but I could not speak up. I couldn't speak up at all. And really, there was no trauma that happened to me in a restaurant, so I know it had nothing to do with that specifically. But I feel like it's one of those things where if you don't do something often, then it becomes an anxiety or a phobia. Like there's a lot of anxiety that ended up happening, and I got to the point where I couldn't speak to anyone outside of the family, or if I did, it would have to be somebody that I knew quite well or in a situation that was really comfortable. But I remember not speaking to anyone. I remember not speaking to anyone outside the family, and I spoke to my family, I think, as little as possible. I remember being very withdrawn. I don't think I stopped talking altogether. I wasn't mute in the way you see on TV. I chose to not talk as much, and I remember being very inward, and I thought a lot and observed a lot, but I did not speak very much. But actually being in a social situation and out and about, and no, I couldn't speak, it was terrifying to me. I became very anxious and I didn't want to do it at all, and I would avoid it. There was a man who came into my life, and he used to say to me, I always remember him saying, "You have so much to say. You should talk more. Why don't you ever talk? Why don't I ever hear you speak? You should say more things. I can tell you have a lot to say." And that meant so much to me. It really helped me to overcome the anxiety that I developed. He really pushed me to speak in social situations too. No longer was I allowed to rely on other people to speak to strangers for me. I had to talk to people. I had to give them eye contact. He explained these things to me, and he took the time to really help me to get better. And I feel like he was the only person who really did that. He was the only person who noticed kind of what I was going through, stuck up for me, and really tried to like push me to improve. And nobody had done that for me at that time. So to me, it was a really big deal. He made me feel like my voice had value again, and that was very important to me. Unfortunately, he did go on to groom and sexually abuse me, so it wasn't really the altruistic thing that I thought that it was, just like everyone in my life, unfortunately, or at least the large majority, not everyone. But, I mean, what? How traumatic is my life that even the people that I feel like helped me out of difficult situations or helped me through a bit of trauma literally did go on to like commit the worst crimes against me. And to be honest, that was one of the worst ones. And it's so hard for a child of trauma to open up to an adult, especially of the opposite gender, when those are really the people who are hurting her. And then to feel like we can really open up and be calm and finally trust someone and then be betrayed. It's so awful. It's just the worst thing, honestly. And it was such a difficult time in my life. And then to try to get through all of that and unpick all of that as an adult, it's virtually impossible, but I've got there. And I think really we need to see the trauma in our lives and really think, oh, you know what? I've done a lot of work on myself and I've really got myself to a good place. And I'm really happy that I can get to a point where I can trust people and be open with people now. And oh, it's hard. It's hard work. It's hard work. And like, why don't other people have to go through this? I feel like it's just me. Is it you too? Tell me if it's you too, because I feel like it's just me who's gone through all these awful things. And it kills me a little bit inside, I must admit, especially now that I have children, because I just can't understand it. I can't understand how anyone can do that. It's vile to me, absolutely disgusting how anyone can hurt a child. And I'm even talking, it's not even just the sexual abuse, even though that's horrible, but I can't understand how anyone can even just purposely hurt a child or gain their trust and make them feel loved and special and like really good about themselves just to hurt them later. It's absolutely awful. And not protect them. Is that worse somehow than abusing somebody? Having children and not protecting them? I don't know. Part of me thinks that's even worse, because why did you have them then? Please let me know if any of this rings true for you, because I feel quite alone in all of this now. See you next time.